Take this mic out. There we go. Hear me okay? So I'm Geordie Lynch, and I am the filmmaker working on this historical documentary called City of White Gold. And tonight I am going to be telling you about a discovery that took place in 1859, after the gold rush. It was a discovery so phenomenal that it led to epic change here on America's Pacific frontier. Now, this is the story of the discovery of the Comstock Lode. It is the story of the San Francisco Stock and Exchange Board that opened up because of the Comstock Lode and the stock frenzy that ensued. This is the story of the titans who built San Francisco and the Far West on Comstock silver. People like Adolph Sutro, probably heard of him, William Ralston, William Sharon, maybe you've heard of John Mackey, just to name a few. Now, most of us know about the gold rush, but scant detail is paid attention to the silver rush that immediately followed. Now, this is a story, a saga, a subject that is largely left out of our history books. Now, I don't think there's any argument about the importance of the gold rush in Western history. But it is my opinion that the silver rush was at least equally as important to Western history. And my film is going to prove that. Now, the film is a character-driven story, but tonight I'm going to be talking specifically about Comstock mining and the stock market frenzy, all the stock market activity that came out of that. And I'm going to show you a couple of video clips tonight with the talk. One of them is a 10-minute sample reel from the film in progress, City of White Gold. Okay, so first of all, what was the Comstock Lode? Well, it was basically a fissure vein, which is a crevice that runs deep underneath the surface of the earth. And this fissure vein, Comstock Lode, was discovered in the Washoe Hills of Nevada, which is between Carson City and Reno. It's at an elevation of 6,200 feet, 6,200 feet. So it's pretty high. And the Comstock Lode stretched for between 2 and 3 miles in length. It went down to unknown depths, and it was full of these pockets of silver streaked with gold. So imagine all these mines on top of the fissure vein there, and they're all looking for those pockets of precious metals. And nobody knew when exactly a mine was going to find one of those pockets. So you can imagine that stirred up a lot of excitement. So the discovery of the Comstock Lode, it completely changed the mining that went on in the United States. It represented the transition from placer mining to hard rock mining. Now, the gold rush was full of placer mining, which is searching for surface deposits of gold, right? Flakes, nuggets in streams, in dried up riverbeds, in shallow earth. But the Comstock era was hard rock mining, which is digging down deep into hard rock and unpredictable terrain in search of all that silver and gold. That is much more difficult and much more expensive than placer mining. But this opened up a whole new opportunity, a perception that endless supplies of precious metals lay deep underneath the earth if only they could get to it. And nobody was under the illusion that this was going to be easy. They knew that it would take massive amounts of industrial strength to get at that silver and gold, which in turn would require lots and lots of money. In other words, it would take money to make money. So I'm going to show you a video clip here. This is a short video clip from the rough cut edit of this film in progress, City of White Gold, and this explains more detail about hard rock mining.
The Comstock creates a whole new world in California mining. Before that, the 49ers come west, they have a pick and a shovel and a pan and head out.
The entire west coast was defined by placer mining by the gold rush of California, the famous 49ers who went and excavated surface deposits, stream beds, placer sands, but they hadn't been exploring underground with what was known as hard rock mining.
Thank you. Please be careful. If anything happened to you.
Off you go. All right, love, let it go. Good sound timber guild, but it just isn't holy.
Hard rock mining is very difficult to achieve. The Comstock was particularly difficult, especially difficult, represented its own challenges because you'd be delighted to follow a gold vein that was 3 inches wide, but a vein of gold and silver expanded from a foot to several feet, at times 40 feet, even up to 60 feet across. You can't get a tree trunk to span that and keep the mountainside from collapsing on you, and yet you cannot resist scooping out 60 feet of nearly pure gold and silver. You've got to grab that.
They begin to understand that this is a very deep but also a very dangerous mining operation that's going to require large amounts of capital.
You need hundreds of investors to dig down. They're going to go down, the mines end up being thousands of feet deep.
Okay, so now here's the challenge. Will the lights go back on? Look at that. All right. We should go off. So, what you heard him say was the mines are going to go thousands of feet. Eventually, the Comstock low, they go I think they go up to what, 3,000 feet deep. So very, very deep. He says, what do you need to do that? You need hundreds of investors. And so this is where the stock market comes in. Now, the stock market was going to be one of the biggest deals in the far west during the 19th century Gilded Age. It was the primary driving force behind the building of San Francisco, behind the mining of the Comstock lode, and behind the development of the far west at that time. Now, very early on, mining companies formed corporations and they issued stock. For example, in 1860 alone, 37 different mines incorporated up there on the Comstock. For example, the Ophir Mining Company, the Gould and Curry, Savage, Yellow Jacket, to name a few. So these newly formed corporations, they sold stocks in order to raise capital. And the stock market started slowly at first. In the beginning, they did not sell stocks to the general public, only to the wealthy, most of them in San Francisco. So at first, the general public was left out of Comstock trading, and at first they wanted to be left out of Comstock trading. They didn't trust corporations, and nobody wanted to invest in corporate stocks because it seemed way too risky and too expensive for most people. And no one knew when a corporation might fail, leaving them penniless. So they stayed out of it at first, but by 1861, interest in the Comstock lode was increasing. So much so that in September of 1862, the very first organized stock exchange in the West opened its doors, the San Francisco Stock and Exchange Board. Now, at first, the San Francisco Stock and Exchange Board was met with skepticism. It was opened by 40 stockbrokers whom a dubious public called the 40 Thieves. And if they saw one of its brokers walking down the street, they would say, why, there goes Alibaba himself. And newspapers refused to publish stock transactions at first, but soon the lure of the Comstock lode took hold, and we really start to see a stock market craze happen. In 1863, the stock market really took off with purchasing of stock, trading of stock now happening across class lines. Not only the wealthy were involved anymore. And it got to the point where trading could not keep up with demand. Other organizations for the stock exchange started opening up. For example, San Francisco had maybe one or two other boards that opened up. Sacramento, Marysville, right here in Stockton, they had a stock exchange open up. And just things got really crazy, especially in San Francisco. Now in San Francisco, virtually every living being in that city, from the rich to the middle class, to the poor, to the Chinese, to the ladies of the night, they were all investing in stock. And the greeting on the streets was not, "Hi, how are you?" but, "Hi, how are your stocks?" So the Far West economy was quickly becoming stock market driven. Now this phenomenon, the widespread, continuous involvement of all classes across socioeconomic lines in the purchasing and trading of shares in a company, that completely modernized the stock market world. So things got very exciting, and you have to wonder, what was this allure of the Comstock Globe? Okay, yes, there was lots of silver and gold. Excellent, that's going to make anybody go crazy, right? However, there was something about the Comstock Globe, especially in San Francisco, that got people really excited about it, and I want to read to you an excerpt from a book that was written by a woman named Harriet Levy. This is a book called 920 O'Farrell Street, and Harriet Levy is basically a book where she's writing her memoirs about growing up in San Francisco in the 1870s. And in this excerpt, she says, "The south side of the 800 block held a story. I walked along it with delight. My interest concentrated upon the large double residence in the middle of the block, which gave balanced grandeur to the whole neighborhood. It was the home of John Mackey, king of Consolidated Virginia. The mine that, at the turn of a shovel, had converted a poor miner into a multi-millionaire. Daily, I passed homes before which my spirit automatically drew back. The Friedenthal sat upon my heart heavily. The proud obscured the sun. Not so the home of John Mackey. The Mackey house swept away all small barriers. It trailed clouds of glory from the mining centers of Nevada. It broke life into claims and stakes and tips and noble gamblers and inexhaustible outpourings. It brought to our doors the Comstock Lode and Virginia City. I told myself that it was not the flourish of wealth that commanded my obeisance, but the romance of the triumphal passage from mining cabin to a city mansion." So it got people quite excited. It became like a lottery. You buy a ticket, in this case mining shares. If your mine strikes it rich, you've hit it big. If your neighbor down the street hits it big, then you're that much more determined to get involved, hoping that you too will win easy money. So it sounds like a lot like today's lottery. Now, so as silver bricks were coming out of Nevada in droves, then the higher the value of the stock rose. And the higher the value of the stock rose, then San Francisco and the Far West kept developing, expanding. And it happened in spurts. It all depended on how the Comstock Lode, the ebb and flow of the Comstock Lode. But the big irony is that the more silver that was coming out of Nevada, the bigger the chance that the actual value of the actual silver would depreciate. And there was this real fear on a national level that if so much silver was going to be pulled out of the Comstock Lode, then the value of silver would plummet. And you couple that with this worry that Germany was going to dump all of its silver into the United States market, and it created almost a panic where the federal government, in 1873, they passed the Coinage Act, which was basically doing away entirely with the silver dollar. So you can see that this caused a national, I don't know if I want to say mayhem, but a political turmoil. This raged for decades in Congress. It was called the free silver debate, in which they debated whether or not to bring the silver dollar back, and how that would affect the economy, back and forth for decades. So So you can see that the effect of the Comstock lode is not only a regional issue, but it's actually at a national level. And if we look at, the other countries like Germany, I mentioned that, then it becomes an international level. So very important story, Comstock lode. And I am now going to show you the 10-minute sample reel from this feature film in progress. So go ahead, pull out the popcorn, and enjoy the show.
The year was 1859. The California gold rush was over. San Francisco was in flux, its direction unclear, its future uncertain. Miles away in the desert hills of today's Nevada, a discovery was about to take place that would decide the course of the far west, turn paupers into kings, visionaries into heroes, leaders into tyrants, and the prosperous into beggars. It would transform a frontier society of men into a new urban one with women, children, and families. It was a discovery that would begin San Francisco's journey from a mining boomtown into the world-class metropolis that we recognize today.
The golden moment of the gold rush is rather short. It lasts from 1848 to maybe 1853. I think we focus on the gold rush because it's so much part of American mythology that the individual can make it on their own. The people who were here wanted to build fast, get their money, and many of them wanted to go home. There was a building up of a physical city that was pretty substantial, but it was mostly, as Robert Louis Stevenson said later, a woodpile at great extent, and it could easily have just blown away.
In 1855, we have the first depression in San Francisco, and it looks like the gold is running out. And what banks there were at that time, they went belly up. There was a sense that gold was the reason for San Francisco being here. If the gold was going to run out, then essentially San Francisco was going to become a ghost town.
People are starting to leave, merchants are losing money, they're really panicking.
Desperation, depression, until the discovery of the Comstock lode in 1859.
Just east of California's Sierra Nevada mountains, in what was once called Utah territory, two simple miners were prospecting in some barren desert hills. On June 8, 1859, they struck gold. Henry Comstock, another local miner, stumbled upon them and their findings. He declared that they were on his claim and demanded that they share it with him and his companion. On the site of what became Virginia City, Nevada, the four uncovered a seemingly endless supply of gold.
It's mixed up with some heavy blue-black stuff that they curse and throw aside in big heaps until somebody takes the stuff over to an assaying office in Grass Valley. It assays out at over $500 a ton in gold, but over $3,000 a ton in silver.
I would have been more or less than human if I had not gone mad like the rest. Cartloads of solid silver bricks. I succumbed and grew as frenzied as the craziest. Mark Twain.
Word quickly spread through Grass Valley. Shrewd, opportunistic miners such as George Hurst immediately set out over the Sierra to witness the discovery for themselves. They liked what they saw and wasted no time in buying out the founding claim holders.
So the original prospectors who were in on the ground floor discovering the Comstock lode and who sold out for a few $1,000s, they could see the money that could have been theirs concentrated in creating huge fortunes for others, and a number of them went insane or killed themselves, feeling that they had been suckered.
It wasn't long before San Francisco knew about the Comstock discovery. In the fall of 1859, shiny white bars of silver were paraded through the city streets past crowds of astonished onlookers.
So the Comstock and San Francisco are linked like this. So there's tremendous opportunity for the city.
One man who realized this opportunity more than all others was William Chapman Ralston.
William Chapman Ralston is the banker prince of early San Francisco. He establishes the Bank of California in 1864, which becomes the leading financial institution on the West Coast. It's sometimes said that Ralston was the man who built San Francisco, largely by exploiting the possibilities of the Comstock lode through his Bank of California.
Everybody talks about you, your princely hospitality and large scale of expenditures. All who go to California want to see you. James Lease, New York.
Ralston needed a man on the Comstock, and he chose for that position a famous, one might almost say an infamous, stock jobber and card sharp named William Sharon. And he's one of the great villains of the time. He's totally ruthless. He uses inside information on the Comstock lode to enrich others, and in the process to enrich himself and to get himself enormous power.
Upon his arrival in Virginia City, Sharon quickly learned what the mine operators had been grappling with for years.
It's one of the most difficult mining conditions ever discovered. They were the deepest and the hottest mines in the world. It's really like sinking shafts into an almost active volcano.
From the beginning, it was clear that it would take money to make money.
Dear brother, this is a mining country much more extravagant in its proportions than California ever was. Some claims here are worth from $6,000 to $8,000 and $10,000 per foot, worth cash in San Francisco. All over these barren mountains, wherever there's a cliff of rocks found protruding from the surface, men are engaged in mining tunnels and sinking shafts, and every day or two some company strike a ledge of rich silver-bearing quartz. Charles DeLong, Virginia City.
An individual can't do this. The only way you can exploit a lode like that is to raise money on a stock market. You have to pool capital. The San Francisco Mining Exchange is established in 1862 to do just that. Previous to the Comstock, the poor and even the middle class didn't really invest in stocks very much. It was considered way too risky. But the Comstock, because of its peculiar geology and the chance to make huge fortunes, sets off an absolute frenzy of speculation that pulls thousands, tens of thousands of people into the market and makes them sheep ready to be sheared by those people who had inside information.
There are two times in a man's life when he should not speculate. When he can't afford it, and when he can. Mark Twain.
That massive influx of money out of the Comstock lode and out of the mines in general, this new surge in the 1860s, will allow San Francisco to carry on living that myth, living that golden dream of opportunity and instant wealth.
The possibility of getting rich quick set the course of San Francisco's turbulent growth throughout the 1860s and on through the 1870s.
There's no greater casino to gamble in than the Comstock lode at that time. It was gaudy, it was flashy. There's these violent boom and bust cycles in which a few people profit enormously by the control of information that most people don't have.
My own dear brother, it rarely happens that a man sees an easy fortune glide into his hands and out of them again as rapidly as I have done. But do not infer, dear brother, that I am crushed, or that I have lost my spirit and hope. I have fought gallantly in the battle of life, and I mean, when I fall, to die with my harness on. I'm working like a Trojan, trying to gather up the wreck of my shattered fortunes. Charles DeLong.
People would plunge their money in thinking that somehow they'd break the bank, that they would bust the system, but almost nobody did. And our own time is very similar to that, actually. People today still think that they'll be the lucky ones that are going to beat the system, going to break the house, and they don't. It's ruined thousands of people now, just as it did at that time.
what you've just seen is a drop in the bucket of what the feature film is going to be. Now, there's many other stories that go to this. One of them is the epic battle between the Bank of California and 4 upstart Irishmen who band together solely for the purpose to try and wrest control of the Comstock Lode away from William Ralston and William Sharon, the Bank of California. There's the story of Adolf Sutro, who spent years digging his massive Sutro tunnel in order to get to those silver mines. And there's the story of the riots in San Francisco that break out when the Comstock stock market crashes. So there's many other stories that will be told in the feature film than what you've experienced tonight. Okay, and I just want to wrap up by emphasizing the importance of film to spreading awareness of our rich history and heritage. Film has that way of bringing out the conflict that is inherent in any story. And by doing that, historical documentary films are able to draw a wide and diverse audience into the history of subject. So City of White Gold is a character-focused drama that plays out like a Greek tragedy, really. So by engaging an audience with that kind of drama, it will also fill in a key part of Western history that is virtually unknown by the general public. So by engaging people, enthralling them, this will fill in that gap in our knowledge of Western history. It will show the nation and the world about this key part of the development, the building of not only San Francisco, but the far west and its national implications, so that Americans can understand and appreciate how silver has played such an important role in our history. I really urge you to support this film. And you can ask me how, anytime. Go to my website, www.cityofwhitegold.com. I'm doing a fundraiser in Virginia, in Virginia City, on the side of the Comstock Lode, Saturday night. Unfortunately, you guys are leaving that morning from the conference. But if anybody else wants to go up and check out Virginia City and the Comstock Lode, my website has a link to where you can buy tickets. Come on, it's a 4-hour fun-filled fundraiser Saturday night in Virginia City on the Comstock Lode. Okay, so I want to thank you all for listening to me tonight. Hope you enjoyed the film project.
So my question is, why San Francisco if it was Virginia City? What was the impetus to bring the wealth of the material from Virginia City to San Francisco?
Yeah, because the original investors were San Franciscans. So in the beginning, they're up there, Virginia City was a tent town at the beginning. And these guys are digging down, things are getting more complicated. They say, where are we going to get the money from? Oh, I know, San Franciscans. Now, San Francisco was already solidified as a city, a boom town that was there. And so the guys who were in San Francisco were like, look at all this dough. I mean, we can make something amazing of this city of San Francisco. Nobody was thinking, let's make something amazing of 6,200 feet on some barren hills in Nevada. So it really just came down to
That's where the money.
That's where the money was coming from, and that's what they wanted to see. Virginia City did have 16,000 people at its heyday, so it wasn't like little small potatoes, but it was a one-horse mining town all the same. San Francisco just kept expanding and became a metropolitan.
But just to say another obvious point is you had to get the materials out of the region, had to go off by ship someplace. There was no transcontinental railroad. San Francisco is the only good port, but though Stockton and Oakland are ports, so your question is a good one in that regard. But it was materials were going out through the Golden Gate, no matter what.
One just to follow up on that. One of the major markets in the world, not only at the time of the Comstock Lode, but for centuries, 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, etc., was China, and for the silver. And so San Francisco obviously was a major exporter, not only of Comstock silver, but also Mexican silver, including Mexican pesos. It was actually the biggest export for certain years in the late 19th century. Mexican pesos, not American dollars, Mexican pesos. So the other thing I wanted to mention very quickly, and then I won't intercede again, is that Greg Reckon wrote a book in 1999. It was a bestseller and still available on Amazon. I've got a copy called Imperial San Francisco.
Everyone should have it.
and by UC Press, actually, right? Yeah. And he goes into great detail about the amassing of fortunes and who the individuals were. And not only San Francisco, but financed monster biggest hitters in New York City that were financed out of Virginia City. So, you know, we think that, well, this is just kind of a local Western kind of thing. Wrong. This is global. And the biggest players are among the biggest players on planet Earth at the time, right?
Well, it leads to Paris and London as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one question. Yeah, the Sutro Tunnel, what was the diameter of it, and is the water still moving through it today, or?
Oh, so you mean diameter, the length of it?
Yeah, no, the diameter.
Size.
How big?
How big was it?
I know it's 4 miles long.
How big was it?
No, 2 inches?
Wide?
No,
It wasn't 2 feet, or?
We'll measure it. We'll measure it.
To describe it, you could have on one side a ditch for the water to come through the tunnel, and on the other side you would actually have a little wagon that you could put people in and go up and down. So
people could traverse.
ride up and down through it as well as.
So they didn't drill it, they actually excavated it.
Yeah, it was not a small little thing.
And is it running today?
Yes.
The water?
Is there water still coming out today?
Yeah. There have been lapses, but it's still draining.
And wasn't there gonna be another use for that tunnel too?
Transportation for miners.
The what?
Transportation for miners.
To get in and out of the mines?
Yeah, this was a big fear of people in Virginia City. That's why they were so against Adolf Sutro, because Sutro, he had this whole grand plan that he would dig this tunnel, he would develop a town named after himself, Sutro, at the base of his tunnel, 4 miles down the road, and everybody would leave Virginia City and go and live in Sutro land.
Yeah.
So because of that, everybody up in Virginia City was like, forget this guy. They were totally against it. They fought it tooth and nail.
Yeah, I remember something.
Tell me, what was the effect of this silver on the American economy, and particularly in the presidential election of 1896, if I remember correctly, there was a big deal with
Yeah, no, but I'm not ready to answer, I'm just holding the mic. But the point is that to deduce a little bit, the expansion in silver was especially up through the 70s, and then after that, silver production grew, but who's gonna, in any case, you're talking about 1896 and William Jennings Bryan and the Democrats on one hand trying for free silver, and on the other hand, the 1873 Coinage Act had meant that there were not to be, where gold standard was getting the, so I can say this one, at a time when silver was really expanding in the U.S. for the world economy, especially the English, the gold standard was what was the emphasis of politics and economics, and I still can't figure out the details.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is true, and I don't know a lot about it either, but I know that free silver debate was so big that it did decide elections. You know, are you going to be for the gold, the monumentalism standard, or are you going to be for bimetallism, where silver is going to have its place equal to gold again? And that just kept going back and forth.
We got an authority here.
For decades.
I've looked a lot at South Africa, and I spent 15 years there, and what happens in the timing with the bimetallism is what they call it. When silver was contending with the silver standard, a gold standard, or a joint one. And what happened in the timing is in Johannesburg they discovered the Waterstone, which is this massive gold deposit. And that came through England, through London. And that pretty much squashed the bimetallism that was coming out of the Comstock lode. And because they had so much gold coming out of South Africa at the time, they basically buried the silver bimetallism standard.
The gentleman that just spoke is Thomas Polk, who's in the School of Business at UAB.
Why it was a political issue was that the price of silver depreciated against gold. So the people on the working on the land were finding that everything they produced was worth less and less in gold terms. But the things they had to buy from Europe or other countries cost more and more because they were in gold terms. So that's why the political energy had such a big, powerful political
international level.
Yeah.
And that's Simon, by the way, professor in Beijing. I'm sorry, in Tokyo, and from Australia.
Yes. I had a question. My grandparents homesteaded in Nevada, steamboat just down the hill from Virginia City, and steamboat no longer exists. But my father always told me that it was the money from the Comstock Road going to San Francisco that financed the Union because Nevada became a state during the Civil War, and it was that partly won the war for the Union.
Yeah, that's what they say. It's true. Yeah, that helped immensely in the Union winning the war. All that precious metal coming from the Comstock going east.
I just wondered if my dad had it right.
He was right.
I got a question. I go down, I've been in Africa at the gold mines and down Mexico at the silver mines and what have you. And I've seen a lot of it, so I know what it's about. What was the majority of the silver used for, other than currency?
Great question. I mean, they were exported out, silver bullion to pay debts. There's also using it for physical things, silverware.
Silver, but I mean, it depends upon the period of time. It depends upon the period of time you're talking about, because the silver screen, right, which used to be, I mean, there are all kinds of medicinal applications of silver. It's a great conductor. I mean, so it depends upon the particular period of time you're talking about. Sometimes, it's monetary, it's all kinds of non-monetary things. It's the reason for the silver spoon and so forth, that's medicinal, because it has certain positive health consequences. So I'm not an expert in all of these things, but I read about them, and so it really does depend upon the period of time that we're talking about.
I know we used millions of tons of silver back in Tennessee during the silver bomb, and
the other thing to keep in mind is that even on the monetary part, which is my expertise, even on the monetary part, when you get, it's a precious metal that accumulates. It's not like bread, you produce it and eat it and it's gone. It lasts a long time. But there's a wear and tear, and if you have a deterioration of 2-3% per year, compounded year after year, that means every 30 years or so you have to replace the entire stock, right? And so if you have, for monetary purposes, in China and all over the world, really, the Mexican peso, actually in the 18th century, was a much bigger global money than the US dollar is today. It was bigger globally in terms of the Mexican peso, right? And so if these you get 2 or 3% of them wearing out per year, you say, not a big deal, 2-3%. But that means every 30 years, you've got to replace the entire damn stock, which is tons and tons and tons and tons of production just to keep the money stock stable, never mind growth, right? And so Anyway, it's a complicated issue and I think it's a great question.
Another question.
The answer is complicated.
And it's also a way, it's status, because silver becomes status, because I gave the example the other day of Louise Mackey using tons of silver from her husband's mine to launch herself into international society, but because she sent it to Tiffany and had it, made into a phenomenal silver set, which got her into Parisian society. But it also becomes, as the middle class begins to form, it's the way that you identify yourself as middle class or upper class as well too. Because my parents, for example, when they got married, what you did was you got a set of silver, and that was the way that you displayed that you were in the middle class. And so it becomes very important as that kind of signifier of class.
Question over here.
I'm wondering, I'd never thought of the China connection to the mines. I'm born and raised here, and literally my family goes back to those mines. And it just occurred to me as you guys were speaking, the number of Chinese settlements in this area. I mean, Stockton had a profound Chinese community, Locke just down the road, China Camp. There were Chinese settlements all over the Central California.
Built the Delta.
Thank you. Heretofore, I had believed that the Chinese came here to build the railroad. But I'm beginning to wonder, with the Chinese trade in silver, does that mean that China sent people here to develop that trade, to develop the mines?
No. The short answer to that is no. But silver had been going to China for centuries. And as far as the Americas are concerned, the silver started coming out of the Americas, out of Acapulco, going through the Philippines, through Manila, and into China. And that trade started in 1571. And the Manila galleons went on for 250 years into the 19th century. So of course there were a lot of Chinese actually in Mexico City, the Parian, and in Manila, huge numbers of Chinese, 20,000. But the silver was going there, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Chinese were coming and seeking it out. The Spanish, but which meant really all kinds of people besides Spanish, taking the silver from Acapulco to Manila, and then once it gets to Manila, then the various traders, the Asian traders especially, Chinese but also Portuguese and all kinds of other people, but the end market is in China. And this remains true even to a greater extent in the 18th century and even into the 20th century. One fellow who couldn't make it here today, but he was in San Francisco with us yesterday and the day before, Jim St. Clair, has published some articles a while back, and he was talking about he went into the archives of the records of the Port of San Francisco, late 19th century. I forget the exact dates, but it was the late 19th century. And he was really surprised that the #1 export in terms of value coming out of the Port of San Francisco was in fact going to China, and it was Mexican pesos. So the Mexican pesos were coming in, and that was #1 going to China. So I know most people think of it in American terms or this country or that country, but once you start thinking globally, if you leave China out of the equation, you've got a very misleading point of view.
The context that we've all learned historically is that the Chinese were exploited.
everybody was exploited. I mean, the Spaniards were equal opportunity exploiters. I mean, they would be quite happy to exploit their own people as much as the Filipinos or anybody else.
Yeah, and also in the mines, the unions wouldn't let the Chinese in. So they weren't going down the mines because the unions said, we don't want Chinese working with us.
Who's going to comment now?
So they didn't get to do that. You know, so mining on the Comstock, at least. Now, I know in California, the Chinese would kind of move in after, you know, white miners were done with their work. On the Comstock, that thing was so unionized, they're just like, no way. No
There's no
Chinese.
Chinatown in Virginia City.
Yeah, right. This is Professor Edie Sparks from the University of the Pacific Department of History.
Thank you. I just wanted to add something and then also make a comment. Just to clarify, the Chinese did come to mine gold, just to clarify, because the question, I think, seems to be asking about that. And some say that the foreign miners tax that was passed in 1852 was largely aimed at keeping the Chinese out of the gold mines, and it raised a lot of money for California at the very beginning of its history as a state. The question or the comment that I wanted to share, Geordie, about the film, exciting, really glad that you're adding it, because you're right, you're restoring the history of this to California. And I wanted to urge you to tell it as a story that includes women, and to also include the Chinese and Mexican miners. There are a lot of really interesting stories about women that are connected to the silver mines also, and it can be character driven also to include them in the story. Mary Ellen Pleasant is a great example, who is considered sort of the richest African American woman in the country at that time, who's connected with, I think it's Ralston. His divorce is played out in the press.
Yeah.
Okay.
William Sharon.
His divorce is played out in the press in San Francisco in a really interesting way. That would be something interesting to highlight. And then my own work has documented the many small-scale female enterprisers that have capitalized on miners. You know, one of the common sayings is those who mine the miners are the ones who actually made money in the gold rush. And you find lots of examples of that, I think, with the silver mines as well. So
I will say the trial of Sharon is going to be in the film.
Good.
So
And
just
Mary Ellen Pleasant.
very briefly about that is a woman named Sarah Althea Hill claimed that she was married to the richest man in California, William Sharon. And she claimed that she wanted a divorce and she wanted half of everything he owed. So,
It's really
yeah, they call it the trial of the century. It got all news item all across the nation, this trial, horrible, dirty trial. Like you said, Mamie Pleasant was a friend of Althea Hill, so she got involved in the trial as well. And, you know, as you say, she was the richest African-American woman because of the stock market. She knew how to play it.
Well, it wasn't just that. There's more to that story. And she was also a very smart investor in building businesses. There's a lot to say about her.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, Edie has a book coming out soon, including Tilly Lewis and a few other very, very prominent women entrepreneurs. And I went to your talk, 2 weeks ago or something like that?
Yes.
And it comes out with what press?
UNC Press.
University of North Carolina next year?
Yes.
2017.
Yes.
Stay tuned. Others?
Why aren't they mining today?
Why aren't they mining today in
the Comstock?
In the Comstock.
They are.
They are.
Well, they
They're
are.
not finding a lot though.
No, but there's a active gold mine just outside of Virginia City.
Well, there's
We were there.
There's Comstock Mining Company going on right now.
There is.
Yeah.
With modern technology and everything.
Yes, I don't know the details. I know they're up there and they're not finding a lot right now.
Yeah.
Well, there's also there's a huge amount of controversy because they'd like to open a tip where Virginia City is. And of course, the people there who are there because of the history of Comstock, they don't want an open pit where their town is.
Nobody wants them anywhere in the world.
EPA.
So there it is happening. But like I said, at this moment, from the best of my understanding, is they're not
I think Bill's going to wrap things up, because if we go another 5 minutes, we'll get charged another half an hour. And as you've all learned, once academics get started talking, it's hard to stop them. Before we end for the night, I'd like to thank everyone who participated here tonight, especially Geordie Lynch and Professor Patrick Mai, President of the American. And also, I'd like to give a special thanks to my friend and colleague for 32 years, Professor Dennis Flynn. The organization of this event over the course of a week, including today here in Stockton, is virtually solely due to Dennis Flynn. So he deserves all the credit for putting it together tonight. And as you all learned, we learned a lot about the Comstock load here and its effect on the local area. But it's pretty clear that there were global impacts that are very obvious. That's why the School of International Studies is involved. And the School of International Studies is a big part of the University of the Pacific, and we have a global focus. So if any of you here have children, grandchildren, and they're interested in global education, please help me. Thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate it.